So, you want to get started in Miliastra Wonderland, but you have absolutely no previous experience about coding. Maybe you have heard of variables, but you're not really sure what they are or how to use them. Don't worry, I will walk you through everything you need to know. By the end, you will understand all variable types in Miliastra and how they can be used. So let's start simple. What even are variables? Think of a variable as a container that stores data for something in your game. Every variable has a name and a value. Just imagine a labeled box that belongs to an entity, like a hilichurl. You put a label on that box, for example, age, and inside the box you place a note that says 25. Now, when you want to know the age of that hilichurl, you just open the box and read the value, and that is all the variable is. So let's take a look at this in practice. I have this hilichurl here, and every dynamic entity, whether it is a creation or an object, has a component called custom variables, and this is where you define variables for that entity. If we open advanced editing, you can see that there's already a variable here called name. The middle shows the type, and on the right side you see the value. Right now that value is Bob. We can use this variable in a text bubble, and when we enter the game, the hilichurl is called Bob. Now if we go back and change the value to, let's say, Alex, and return to the game, you will see the name updates automatically without us ever having to change the text bubble again. So why not just type the name directly into the text bubble? Because variables let us reuse data everywhere, not just text bubbles, but also in UI, in your node graph logic, and it gets even better if we create another hilichurl and change the variable to a different name. All of your places that use the variable will update automatically for that hilichurl. And this is why variables are so powerful. Now that we know what variables are, let's look at the different types of data that they can store. For that we have simple data types like entity, and those store a full entity, which could be useful if you want to make a summoner class and you summon a unit, so you can keep track of who this unit belongs to. The GeoID is a unique identifier for entities, and these let you find specific entities later that exist in your game. Then you have integers, which are whole numbers, and with that you could define how much damage an attack is supposed to make, how high the score is when you collect or destroy an entity, or even make a custom health bar. Then we have booleans, which is true or false, where you could track whether an entity is alive or not, or whether you have collected a key or not. Then floats are decimal numbers, meaning you could track things like speed values or cooldowns. Then strings are used to represent texts, like the name we saw earlier. So vector 3D represents a position in 3D space using X, Y, and Z coordinates, and with that you can define where something is located in your world. Prefab ID identifies a prefab. This is used when you want to spawn predefined objects, and you can find the prefab ID if you go to the prefab editor and then click on entity. It is located underneath the name on the very top. And lastly, we have configuration ID, used for things like unit statuses. For example, a common use case for unit status would be something like infinite stamina or super jump. So these would be all basic data types in Miliastra. And here I would like to mention that every data type also has a list version, and this means instead of storing one value, you store multiple values in order. And if you want to make a turn-based game, you could store all characters inside your combat in a list, and then you can sort them based on the speed value. Next we have dictionaries, and dictionaries are a collection of data, and these store data as key value pairs, and that means one value points to another. An example from my game Legend of Manekina would be when a player throws a boomerang, the boomerang entity is created, and if only one player would exist, then it's simple to know where this boomerang needs to return to, because there's only one player, right? But with multiple players, we need to know which player threw which boomerang. So for that, we can store the boomerang as a key and the player as the value. And later, when the boomerang needs to return, we just check the dictionary and find the correct player that corresponds to the boomerang. Now, we need to understand something very important. For variables in Miliastra, we have 3 different types of variables. First would be custom variable. You have seen custom variables already. These belong to individual entities, right? And we use them when multiple entities need the same set of data, but with different values. For example, the speed to make the turn-based combat. The second type would be node graph variables, and these are shared across all entities using the same node graph. And that means every entity gets the same value. And this is not ideal for things like speed, but it's perfect for shared systems. For example, in my game Bubble Bash, I have a loot balloon, and each balloon that spawns uses the same node graph with a loot dictionary. When the balloon is hit, it randomly spawns one item from that dictionary. The advantage here is if I add new loot to the dictionary, every balloon that spawns automatically gets access to it. And if for whatever reason I decided to change the loot balloon into another entity, let's say a box, I could just add this node graph and this box would already have that same loot dictionary without changing the custom variables on that entity. And the third option would be local variables, and these are temporary and they only exist during the execution of your node graph. For example, in my upcoming project, I generate maps using a random seed, and I store this seed in a local variable so it stays consistent during generation. Now, instead of recalculating the seed multiple times, or to make sure that the seed is always the same for each part of the generation process, I store it in a variable. So let's quickly summarize what we have learned. Variables store data, data types define what kind of data is stored, lists store multiple values, and dictionaries connect values together. And the variable type defines where the data exists. So in the future video, we'll go deeper into how to use these variables inside node graphs. I have a whole beginner tutorial series if you have never used node graphs before, so you could check that out. But if you found this helpful, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.